as we're at 10:31, I'll just give a small brief introduction before I hand it over to Peter, who's got some helpful maps for us to situate us before Jean-Philippe and Jean-Guillaume take us away to the vines. So as all of you know, the Bret brothers are absolute masters of terroir. They're biodynamic fiends and really relentless pursuers of quality and purity in their wines. And we have an exciting tour of the vineyards today. I think we could all use being taken away to a beautiful land at this point. And they'll be giving us a tour of some of their most special terroirs, and you will have the most current inventory, which also shows the exciting 2018s that we have coming in just a month or two. And so without further ado, I will turn it over to our New York correspondent, Peter.
Well, from the depths of New York, as you can see in my background. Actually, that's a collage. That's a collage. Let me tell you a little bit about the story about how we met the Brets, because it was fortuitous, and it was a very unorthodox way, I guess, of finding winery. So I think it was the summer of '99. One of the Brets was still staging at Dominique Lafont, and it came to the point where you do not have the right to enter in the vineyards and do any sprays or any vineyard work, which is practically a month before harvest. And Dominique, who still is my mother's partner, actually, one of the partners, calls up my mother and in his inimitable voice says, "Becky, I have an intern. I've got nothing left to do. Do you have something for him?" You know, something like that. And Mom asked if the person knew how to use computers. Of course, at that time, we the Bret brothers aren't able to connect.
I just sent them a note. They shouldn't need a password. I just sent them a note.
Okay. One of the Brets was hired to do our first website. And he does the little website, and it was very cute and very, very pretty. And Mom was a sort of a cartoon character in that one. And at the end of doing the website, he comes up to Mom and he said, "Would you like to taste our wines?" And Mom, who had taken a shine to the young gentleman, said, "Yes, I'd love to." All the while thinking, "Oh my God, I hope it's good, because I really love the kid and I don't want to disappoint him." And came back in with his brother, Jean-Guillaume, and they presented the wines, and Mom and the entire office fell in love with the wines, like head over heels right away. And they said, "Well, we have another project, which is a little micro-negos project, and we're going to headhunt terroirs, but we don't know what to call it." At the time, you had to have a different name than your domain name in order to separate it for ease of comprehension by the customs, or one of the administrations who oversee making wines. Mom, who had just seen the Blues Brothers, flippantly said, "Well, you're two brothers, why don't you just call it the Bret Brothers?" And lo and behold, a week later came in a mock a label with the Bret Brothers on it. We didn't think they were going to go through with it. And Mom thought it was just a joke, just a joke. And I'll always remember the conversations after we tasted some of the wines that they wanted to do, and loved them. And everybody's going to say, "Are we going to be able to sell that in the United States?" We were so afraid of the word Bret. That's how we came to know the Bret brothers. They're absolutely fantastic. Let's put it this way. They're purists, absolute purists in what they do and what they believe and how they go about it. No amount of work is too much in order to achieve a goal in the right way. The winery they created is beautiful. It's simple. It's all by gravity. there's no yew oak in the winery unless they've introduced some in the last year. And there's older oak. And discovering what they brought to us was like a pure lesson in Mâconnais terroir. And it is what the Mâconnais was known for prior to it having lost its shine from World War II, we'll say, till about 5-6 years ago. And prior to that, one should go back a little bit in history and understand that Chardonnay comes from the Mâconnais. And it comes from villages that are very close to Pouilly-Fuissé, Fuissé, Chantrey, Vergisson, and really came to light in the early 19th century. And
Peter, I'd just like to say, it looks like we have Jean-Philippe online now. Hello and welcome, Jean-Philippe. You may be on mute, so if you want to unmute yourself, we'll be able to hear you. Sorry to interrupt, Peter. But wanted to welcome our guest. Jean-Philippe, just unmute one more time. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Do you listen to me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, perfect. You hear me. And also you have the video? You see me?
We do?
No, you don't see me? Ah,
We
okay,
do,
perfect. We can stop. Yeah, I'm very sorry because I am trying to get a connection at the bottom of the rock of Vergisson, but the connection was not good. So I don't know. Is everybody here for the show now, or?
We are all here and ready to go.
Okay, so very sorry for the delay because I was at the wrong place and the connection was bad. So just to show you and to present myself, so I am Jean-Philippe Bret, and with my brother Jean-Guillaume, we make some wines at La Souffrandière Estates and also at Bret Brothers, which is our small négoce. And right now, we are located at the north face from the rock of Vergisson. I was supposed to show you the south face, which is maybe the best or the most common, the most famous. But as the connection is not very good, I can't do that. You hear birds? There are some birds outside. So I can show you that way. You see the forest, which are northeast face. And under the forest, this is Pouilly-Fuissé en Châtonnay. I'm gonna walk to show you. So this is all Chardonnay vines. And this is a new vineyard we could get from 2016 that was already organic certified. So this is not ours, but after that, on the left, this is ours. So I walk a little bit more. So the area, or I mean the plot, is about 0.7 hectares, and it produces a very interesting type of Pouilly-Fuissé, which is very rich, but very mineral. And also we pick late compared to the normal Pouilly-Fuissé that you can have in this area. To give you one example, usually we pick 2 weeks later the Pouilly-Fuissé en Châtonnay compared to our Pouilly-Vinzel l'Écart. And both plots are separated by only 4 kilometers, but different exposure. And here it's a little bit higher, a little bit colder. So let me show you now the Pouilly-Fuissé. Do you see well? It moves. Is that moving too much or not?
We can see great. It's beautiful.
Okay, so maybe you see the sign?
Yes,
You see
indeed.
the sign of Puy-Fussé en
We do
Châtenay. So
indeed.
this is the vines just behind. So imagine that face is the north face with a little bit east facing from the rock of Vergisson. So that means, again, we pick later. And the soil is very, very, very red there due to the oxide of iron. And so let me show you that. So the horse was this morning in the plot because we use plowing by horse here. And the horse was here today. And so what we do, we plow like this under the feet. You see the feet, the vines. Maybe you see the small berries, the small grapes, and flower is now done for a week now. So we will pick very, very early again this year, probably before the 20th of August. So imagine how early will be the year again, the harvest. And which is particular here, you see maybe the row goes that way, but the slope is on the other way. So it's very dangerous with tractor. This is why we use horse for plowing, because the slope on the left side. And all the grapes here, all the vines here are about 25, 60 years old. So it becomes to be dry around now. We have, it's very sunny for more than 2 months, 3 months almost. And the ground is made of clay and limestone, but you see that the clay is so dry on the surface that it's like stone. But if you dig a little bit, I don't know if you see, when you dig like this, it's more brown because it's wet. And thanks to the quality of that kind of soil, thanks to the clay catches the water in the soil and can give the water which is necessary for a good ripeness during the summer. And this is thanks to this quality of clay that even if years becomes to be more and more earlier and drier and also more warm, thanks to that quality of ground, thanks to the clay, we have water enough to get a good ripeness. And thanks to that water, we can catch acidity and a very good balance in the wines. So I propose you, if you're okay, we can go now to another parcel because we are very, very lucky. We farm 3 different blocks in almost the same place. First one is Puy-Fussé, but you see maybe a house. And just on the other side of the house, this is Saint-Véran. So the limit between both is very, very close. But the soil is totally different. So we will go to the Saint-Véran, La Combe des Roches, which is north faced. And after we go to Saint-Véran, La Bonaude. So if you're okay, you follow me?
That sounds great.
Yes? Okay. So let's go. I will take that way. So what you see here, this is all still Puy-Fussé, Châtenay, which is interesting. This is at Châtenay. That's the old name. That's the old name for a chestnut tree. The French name is châtaignier, and it was very common to have some chestnut tree there. And so Saint-Véran, after, is a new appellation, which has been created in 1971. So it's not a very, very old appellation compared to the Puy-Fussé. Puy-Fussé was the first limited area in the Mâconnais. The limits have been set up in 1921, so it was quite early, at the really beginning of the AOC, Appellation d'origine contrôlée. And so we go, this is still some Puy-Fussé there, you see. So we are very lucky because there are some trees behind. So we are very preserved from neighbor, very preserved for biodynamic spraying, biodynamic agriculture. And yes, let's go to the Saint-Véran. Maybe two informations. Puy-Fissé is about 750 hectares. That represent almost 2,000 acres. And Saint-Véran is a little bit less, 650 hectares. So 1,080, 1,070 acres. Oh, a small garden with organic potatoes. We have also organic tomatoes. You know that's really the countryside there. So this is why we love that place. Okay. So we were very lucky to get that new plant, that new vines in 2016. And I'm used to explain that. This is thanks to Dominique Lafont that contacted us in 2015 and give us that opportunity to farm 5 new hectares because he was in contact with the owner. Okay, so so on the right, you look at that grass field. This is a grass field and the forest. Turn left, and this is Saint-Véran. So Saint-Véran, la Combe des Roches. Okay, Elisabeth, do not hesitate to ask me if you have any question.
Sure. Can you tell us a little bit about the soils in Combe des Roches and also a little bit about your special biodynamic practices? I know you had talked, which I found fascinating, that it's not just a rigid set of rules, but you're always evolving and trying to find better practices to work more in harmony with nature. So I'd love to hear about those two things.
Yes, so that's true. So concerning the soil here, this is still some clay and limestone. There is less limestone compared to the Puy-Fissé, and the soil is a little bit more white. So maybe you see that. That's a new plant we did 2 years ago of aligoté that will produce a little bit more of alligato. So we are very lucky of that. We can propose you more next year maybe. And the soil here, so still some clay, but more white due kind of what we call marne. So marne is a kind of deposit of limestone. And concerning, the biodynamic practices, that's very interesting for us. Look at, so we live growing the grass in the middle of the row. I don't know if you see well, but there is some grass in the middle of the row. Under the feet, we plow. So for that, you could be as well organic, that will be the same result. But concerning the biodynamics, we spray a lot of preparation on the soil, especially what we call the 501, a 500, which is horn manure, that give a lot of energy, like a pulse at the beginning of the spring, a pulse for the bacteria, for the fungus, for the microorganisms, which are very, very important for the soil. So we spray twice during the spring, the 500. So the horn manure, maybe you know that you put some manure, some sheet of coal inside a horn, and that horn you put in the ground for about 6 months. But you don't put only one horn. Usually we do a big hole in the ground and we put thousands and thousands of horns. And the same as in a tank, in a fermentation tanks, you can't have any process of fermentation if you have only one grapes. But with a big quantity of grapes, you're gonna have a process of fermentation. The same with horns. So after 6 months, usually we take the horn during the spring, and that manure became something very close to humus. And that kind of humus, you know, in the forest, if you grab on the soil, you're gonna have a kind of humus. And the same with horn manure, very rich of bacteria, rich of microorganisms. And we only use 200 grams per hectare. But that 200 grams per hectare, we do a kind of dilution of dynamization with water, and we spray about 40, 50 hectares, 40, 60 liters per hectare. So that's a big drop that go to the ground, and that will help the energy in the soil. When I say energy, that will help the organic life. As well, we use a lot of plants, like nettles, like dandelion, like oak tree. So we use that to protect the leaves. You see the leaves like this. So I don't know if you see the leaves. As you can see as well, we do not cut very early. We leave growing high, and we try to cut at the really end as we can, because that part at the top, the name is apex. If you cut it, you give the information to the other buds that they can grow, and which is not really good for the good ripeness. So we spray plants. We spray as well 501, which is a preparation of a powder of silicate, and that is very efficient. We only use 4 grams per hectare. That's 501. Same process as 500, dynamization in water, and we spray on the leaves. And there is a very, very strong effect thanks to the sun. So the very small crystals of silicate will help the leaves to turn and to go up, to grow up. And we did some experimentation in the past, and still we continue that with a witness parcel with no biodynamic preparation, and another one with biodynamic. And you always see the difference of growing only with very, very few quantity of 501 or 500. You know, I am agronomist. I did my study a long time about all the good chemicals you can use, you know, in a normal way for modern agriculture. And when we started to use biodynamic preparation, most of my friends that came from the same school were laughing, you know, about biodynamic practicing. The good thing is that nowadays more and more agronomists, thanks to people like Claude Bourguignon, maybe you know Claude Bourguignon, but if you want to dial on Google Claude Bourguignon, like Burgundy, they are very famous in France because they were among the first agronomists to talk about the organic life in the soil. So thanks to these guys, and mentalities changed a little bit. And maybe 25 years ago, 30 years ago, biodynamic way was considered as something as esoteric, you know, as a blah blah, but with connection with the stars. But more and more scientists now see that there are some results, and this is not because we don't have the keys to explain that it doesn't work. And the fact is that with the witness we could see the very good effect of biodynamic. So what is a good effect? What are the good effects? Finally, this is the balance in the wines, you know. More and more, the big deal for us will be how to manage the global warming, the climate change, because more and more we peak earlier. But what we see, maybe this is that biodynamic can be a short, or in a short time, the answer to the global climate change. Because we have much more acidity in the wines, much more freshness. This is very simple to understand, you know. If you spray, I could show you maybe a vines with spray. It's at the other side. Because so we are Saint-Véran in Saint-Véran-Combe-des-Roches. So imagine north face. Imagine that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, everybody said this is a bad part at the north. Sorry. The ripeness is not good. We have to pick too late to get a good ripeness. And nowadays, this kind of parcel, because of the exposition, because there is less sun, it's less sunny, becomes to be more and more interesting. And we are very happy to produce at Saint-Véran-Combe-des-Roches, always very fresh, easy to drink. You know, it's not complicated, but easy, pure. And so now we go to the east side, which is Saint-Véran-la-Bonaude. So maybe just 1 minute by walk. So you see that the bushes, grass field, so no neighbor. There are some horse in the bottom. Again, a grass field. So that is not common, you know, in Burgundy. In Burgundy, you have a lot of small plots, and very often you have neighbor. And that configuration here is very close to the vineyard we have as well in Vinzel, with Pouilly-Vinzel-l'Écart, you know. Pouilly-Vinzel-l'Écart, this is a big block of 4 hectares that we farm with no or very few neighbors. So it's not common, and we are very, very lucky thanks to that. So now we go.
Jean-Philippe, j'ai une question.
Oui, oui, Peter.
Has there studies been done, scientific studies been done between the activity in the soil with, we'll say, traditional farming versus biodynamic farming?
So, Peter, that's a very good question. I could give you an academic answer. In most of cases, you will not find a very interesting answer, because, you know, in the normal studies, you can't learn anything about biodynamic. You just have to learn by yourself. So let me show you what we call in the area lutte raisonnée. I don't know if you see the soil.
Chemistry.
Okay, so that's a conventional way, which is true for a big part of the Mâconnais, you know. So imagine,
go down close to look. Go down close and show them the soils.
Yes, due to the herbicides, the grass is dead. There is a lot of erosion as well, because when you use some herbicides, herbicides are very powerful chemicals that will break the link between the different molecules of clay. So if you break this link, then after a lot of rain, you will lose your soil and you will have more and more erosion. And I don't talk about the problem of pollution, you know. But to answer your question, Peter, more and more university did some experimentation. Even now, the French famous INRA, I'm sure, Peter, you know INRA, Institut National de Recherche Agronomique, if you want to translate. INRA, okay. So that's the
National Institute of Agronomic Research. Sorry.
Yes. Yes. Don't drink in the meantime. So, now say that with biodynamic something happened. So again, to me, you know, why we love or why we practice biodynamic way. So now, excuse me, this is Saint-Véran. We arrive at Saint-Véran, Climat-la-Bonaude. So which is, so you remember, we were only at 1 minute from Pouilly-Fussé, Châtenay, 30 seconds from Saint-Véran-Combe-des-Roches. So now we arrive at...
That's a long New York walk.
Yes, yes. So a big block, we have a big block of 2 hectares, which is big, which is very, very big for us. And again, with no neighbor on the left, you see the grass field. On the right, there is just a way. Yes, about biodynamic. You know, when I was student in '98, I've been very lucky because I was intern at Dominique Lafont Estate, and Dominique Lafont was experimenting the biodynamic principle since 3 years. And so I had a very serious study about finding on the wines to do. And I spent much more time in the vines with a hoe, you know, taking with a hoe, taking out the grass, with a back sprayer for biodynamic preparation. And I said myself, the truth is here. Because when I see that today we are a small team, we are about 7 people working at Souffrandier Estate. When you spray 500 or 501, you don't use any machine. You have a better connection to the vines. You can see what happens, how they grow. You take time finally. You listen to the vines growing. You know, it's not like a recipe. Or recipe? No, recipe? Recipe.
Yeah, recipe.
It's not recipe. You know, even with organic wave, sometimes this is just a recipe. You have a disease, you have to spray against that disease with kind of molecules. With biodynamics, you try to work before to avoid bad disease, to avoid pests. And also, I'm sure that you make something good for your vines, but for yourself as well. I'm used to say that at the estate, we count 1 people for 1 hectare and a half done. My neighbors in cooperative, for example, in co-ops, they can manage up to 12, 14 hectares with 1 people. So oppose 1 people for 1.5 and 1 people for 14. With the same appellation, imagine this is absolutely not the same work. We mostly do everything by hand. We only works we don't do by hand. This is spraying, this is plowing. A part of the plowing is done by horse. And the result is that for sure the quality of the wine is different. I can show you as well a very small part of excuse me, just one question. Please, just 1 second. Alex, tu peux m'apporter le panier, s'il te plaît? Merci. I'm sorry. Because I could grab a bottle of wine and just open it in the vines. I want to show you the aligoté. That is not common as well, because aligoté in the Mâconnais, there is not much aligoté planted. And usually this is planted at the very bottom of the slope, not in the good quality area. Here, the vines have been planted 30 years ago, and on one of the best parts of Saint-Laurent. So look at that. Okay, so this is now aligoté. So maybe you see difference of color. It's more green. Maybe on the top, this is aligoté. If you turn on the left, Chardonnay. Chardonnay. I'm not sure with the sunlight you can really see the difference, but here, where I am, I see very well the difference. And aligoté, we produce about 1,500 bottles, which is not much. And this is why we decided to replant a new plant on the other side.
Arigato.
Arigato.
Arigato, arigato.
So, let's have a drink now. Okay, so j'ai peut-être besoin d'un coup de main, s'il te plaît. So I am with Alex. Excuse me. Yes, Elizabeth.
Oh, no, nothing. Please go ahead.
No, I just want to say I am with Alex. I will show you Alex. So Alex works with us. We manage mostly the works in the vines. and he joined the team 2 years ago. We are very happy to have now Alex. And yes, and just behind you, we can see some clouds. Oh yes, I don't know if you see the clouds.
Yeah.
We do.
Yes, we're gonna have some thunderstorms. Maybe not tonight, but maybe the day after. So, which is good for the water. Maybe not very good if there is some hail. Yes, Elizabeth, and just maybe I just want to say hello everybody, because I don't know how many people are behind their screen, their iPhone or iPad, everything. So that's the first time I do this kind of stuff. So I find that quite funny, you know. Ah, yes, interesting. Okay, just again, you know, we use wax on all the bottles now. Let me show you. You don't have to break the wax. Just screw from through the wax. That's very easy. So that's especially easy now because it's quite warm outside. So if the bottle comes from out the fridge, let's let it maybe 1-2 minutes, and after that I pull, and that's very clean. Ah, super. Ça sent bon ça. Okay, so that was Pouilly-Fuissé Châtenay, the first one. And now let's try so this is both 18 vintage. And Elizabeth, I know that you wanted maybe some words about 18.
Yes, I'm very excited to have it coming in. And I just like to say we're all so jealous and wish we were there with you. I see some comments in the chat of jealousy. So
next time.
Tell us about the 2018s.
You know, the winter was quite rainy. We got some rain, but the spring was early, warm, and very, very hot, and very dry. We got some drought again in 18, but thanks to the water we could get. Je me recoiffe en même temps, c'est quand même pas mal. We could get, thanks to the water we could get during the winter, the yields were huge. So I mean, 18 is a huge vintage, huge for the quality, because you know, it's not like 15. 15 to me was maybe a little bit overripe. You when you do blind taste with 15, sometimes it's difficult to recognize each terroir, which is not true at all for 18. For 18, you will recognize that's a very precise vintage, and thanks to the water we could get in the soil. And everybody has been surprised by the quantity we could do in 18. So we started the harvest the 26th of August, so early, and we finished at around 10 September. Cheers.
It's also a vintage with a lot of energy. It's got really, really amazing energy for a warm vintage. It really doesn't act like a warm vintage on the palate.
That's true. So Saint-Véran, La Bonaude, and this is a glass for Alex. If we have to compare, you know, 17 to 18, to me, there is more energy in 18. 17 is great, classic.
It's balanced.
But it's balanced. But 18, there is something else. The wines are maybe more open, young, but it's not. This is not like 2006. You know, 2006, the wines were very open, young, and quickly became going down. Went gone quickly. But after that, we could have some very good 06, but maybe 5 years after. To me, 18 is still growing, and with a lot of energy. And how could we explain that? I don't know. You know, big quantity, big quality. That is not common. Really not common.
Do you think, Jean-Philippe, that it has to do where the plant finally produced something that the plant felt was normal? quantity.
Excuse me again, Peter.
Do you think that it comes from the fact that the plants, the vines, were producing something they thought was normal, given
Maybe.
what they had lived in the previous vintages?
Maybe. You know,
Because we
not...
have been looking at 10 years or so of low quantities.
Mm. You know, I'm not in the psychology of the plant.
Okay.
No, but I would love so much, you know, study about that, because I think we are too simplist in our thinking about plants. You know, now we start to understand that there is some communication between trees, between plants. The French INRA now starts to study about the communication between the microorganisms in the soil, you know. So they don't say now, because you have big quantity of microorganisms, this is good. No, now they say because of the quality of the web between the different community of microorganisms, you can have a very interesting organic life in the soil, you know, which is pretty new, you know. Before, for most of agronomists, you had a soil, you had some chemicals, I mean some potassium, some nitrogen inside, and then you could do some analysis on the soil. But nobody talked about the organic life, you know, except maybe Claude Bourguignon. So I think we are just at the beginning of something we understand now. So answering you now, why 18 was 18, I don't know. But that's to me a combination of different things. A big quantity of water during the winter, very warm spring and summer. But something happened, you know, in the middle of August, when the drought stopped, the berries, the size of the berries increased a lot, they doubled almost, just in 10 days. And nobody, even if you
During
talk
the
with
drought?
during just at the end of draft, so it was in the middle of August. So that's not common, you know. You know, we are used to say sometimes when so I don't think this is that, but for some trees, you know, when they feel they're gonna die, they produce twice the quantity of fruits just to preserve, you know, the species. So that could be an answer. I don't think this is that, but I think is sure the climate change, a lot of things change, and maybe we are just at the good balance of water and warm.
We cannot wait to have these 18 stateside. And Jean-Philippe, we're just a little bit past the hour, but I have one last question before I open up that, you know, other questions from the audience, or if you have, you know, final comments for us that we haven't touched on. But a new item for us this year is your Beaujolais Latinier. And who better to introduce it to everyone than you yourself? So would you say a few words about that?
We love, in general, je vais mettre debout, tiens. We love in general the Beaujolais. You know, we drink a lot of Beaujolais at first. We have to say that. With great producers, we love like Dutrèves, Yvan Métras, Lapierre in the past. You know, there are many good producers now, and so we are very proud now to produce 4 different cuvées of Beaujolais. And the one you're gonna have will be Beaujolais Lantinier, which is the really south of the cru area of the Beaujolais. Maybe you don't know that, but just to remind you, I'm sure most of you know that, but in the Beaujolais, there are 2 parts. The north with the cru from Saint-Amour until Régnier. And Lantinier is just located under Régnier. So this is not just a simple Beaujolais village. This is a Beaujolais village from mountains. And we can buy some grapes from somebody who is very involved in the Beaujolais Lantinier appellation, who is Frédéric Bern. If you dial on Google, you're gonna see Frédéric Bern, very involved in the organic project for Beaujolais Lantigné. So we love that that place, you know, because it's not a light Beaujolais. It's not a strong Beaujolais, but there is some character, you know, in that. Je sais pas si on dit caractère, Peter.
Yeah, you can say character.
Yes. Yeah,
absolutely does character.
Yeah.
Guys, it is so delicious. It is fresh, it's concentrated, it's classic. Brianna and I were so lucky to taste it with Jean-Philippe, and we were like, we must have this. So get excited.
I'm very happy of that. But you know, we trust a lot. We love Beaujolais for sure. But I'm used to say as well that the Beaujolais is maybe like the door to go inside Burgundy, you know, because Gamay and Pinot are both very close grapes. When they age, very often it's difficult to say if a Gamay is a Gamay. I did some blind taste often with my friends, you know, friends of mine with 10 years, 15 years old Beaujolais. And most of people say, oh, what is that? And say, this is a Beaujolais. Oh, okay. You just, I think we have to educate again people about Beaujolais, but the history about Beaujolais is fantastic. That's a great history. It was a very rich area with famous name, with famous appellation, you know, but the history made that during the 50s, 60s, the image has been totally destroyed, which is bad. But again, the quality of the Beaujolais, to me, is among the top vineyard in Europe. Really.
Thank you. And truly the attention to detail, obsessive attention to detail, love and care. As Peter said, no work is too much for you to do when you're doing it for the right reasons. It shows through. And we love your wines. We love that the 2017s are still tasting so beautiful. And
will for a long time.
They will. We have to wrap up soon, but let me just ask, does anyone or Peter or anyone else have anything they'd like to ask Jean-Philippe?
Well, I'd like to say to everybody, thank you for your work with the Bret brothers in this area. We hope that you'll carry the torch. Any questions, just direct to me or to Jean-Philippe. I will directly direct them to Jean-Philippe if need be. And, you know, honestly, we've got extraordinary wines that really extraordinarily represent where they come from. And they are true terroir expressions. And finally, there's enough domains down in the Mâconnais to really bring the Mâconnais back to where it was as being one of the greatest white wine producing regions of France. Thanks, Jean-Philippe.
Thank you very much, Verity team. La, 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 la.
La, 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 la.
Hey, Jean-Philippe. Thank you.
Hey, thank you again, guys. And I hope that the lockdown is not too difficult for you guys. We are very lucky here. We are outside, you know, so very lucky. The business is not very good for the last 2 months because of restaurants. It's the same for you. But I'm sure that we'll go now in the good way. And again, thank you for your job. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey, thank you.
C'est magnifique.
Oh, one more question?
Yes, sure.
We have a question here from Steve. How is the petitioning of the government for Premier Cru status going?
That's a very good question. You know, years after years, everybody said it will be next year. No, the Premier Cru should arrive possibly for the next vintage, I mean for 2020. Due to the COVID virus, it stopped everything. I think maybe in 2021 for the pre-fused will be done, because most of the growers voted and agreed for the limit around the parcel, which was the longest way, you know. So now it's just a question of administration, but you know, in France, administration can be long, but we could expect to have some Premier Cru maybe next year. I think so. And the good, the good thing of Premier Cru, just to finish about that, this is that concerning the agronomy, the herbicide should be forbidden.
First appellation in France to do it.
Sure. So it's not yet done, but it's 95% done. So that will be to me one very good thing, to show the way where we should go, because it's not. You can't believe that we spray herbicide on the feet as well, on appellation contrôlée. Why not vin de table? But for appellation contrôlée. Okay.
Salut. Merci.
Merci à tous. So that's a
Thank
French
you.
kiss, okay? Ciao.
Ciao.
Bonne journée à tous.
Merci.
Thank you.